Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome back to Le Freres, Heureux, a wonderful Frasier podcast hosted by the most wonderful brothers in the whole wide world.
Suck it, McElroys.
I am Fraser.
And I am Ewan.
And that was very half-assed. And I'm Ewan.
I'm also here.
I've been
Hello.
dragged out of bed to come and do this podcast.
3 p.m.
Yeah. We are almost at the end of our wonderful show. We are 3 discs away.
Yeah.
2 discs after the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I banged on a wee bit last week about how close we are to finishing up, so I won't do that again.
Yeah.
But yes, we are cracking on. Disc 2 of season 11 this week, going over a questionable series of the show. This one I think was a bit of an improvement.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
honest.
this turned out to be the best disc of this season.
Yeah.
It's pretty strong.
I would
Overall?
say.
There aren't any episodes that I really dislike.
Yeah.
They're not all great, but you know, I think there's a bit of a balance, and there are some high points. So
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. We've got some good ones compared to last week that was far more of a mixed bag.
yeah,
And the last 2 discs as well, which are probably more so of a
I'm not looking forward to next
mixed
week.
bag.
Just looking at the episodes, I think there's a good chance that the first 3 episodes in the next
Yeah.
disc are all going to be ones. I don't.
They might surprise you.
They might
You don't
surprise
know.
me, but
there was one on this disc that I always remember really not liking,
Mm,
but I rewatched it and actually gave it a pretty high score.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
fair enough.
So we'll see. You might surprise yourself.
Yeah,
You never know.
keep an open mind.
Yep. I don't think we've got anything in terms of housekeeping this week. Said everything last week.
Yeah,
Got some updates coming shortly regarding the future of the Happy Brothers.
Mm.
But other than that, nothing really. All good.
Yeah, I think so.
You're manning the social media fronts. Anything?
I don't think anything too
Fun
exciting
going
has happened
on?
on social
No.
media the past week.
No. Okay. Well, let's get started then.
Yeah,
Let's get stuck in. So we start off this disc with a 2-parter. We start with Maris Returns. I wonder what this episode's about.
mm.
So actually, surprisingly, it actually isn't really about Maris that much to start off with.
It's really not.
And the bulk of the episode isn't really, to be honest. Frasier has moved back into private practice, something he's been building up to the last sort of couple of half dozen episodes or so.
Yeah,
They've sort of had mentions here and there. We had when Ronnie's introduced their shopping for a new couch
Yeah.
for his office, and this is him finally getting back into it. So he's got a lovely new assistant. Is it Peg?
Peg.
Peg. I love
Yeah.
Peg. She's so sweet.
She is.
And just innocent and just doesn't really appreciate what's going on. But she's great. And yeah, Frasier just starts to see patients throughout the day. We've got a few guest stars, some pretty notable guest stars as well, actually. I don't know how notable they were for the time. I guess this is all sort of the start, not start, but earlier in their careers.
Some of them might have been quite early, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Looking at the things that they're kind of most well known for would have been sort of a lot of them is sort of in the 90s.
Yeah.
So they would probably have been pretty well known by the time
That's
the
true,
episode
actually.
came out.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
Because this would have been early 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. So yeah, Frasier's not really having great amounts of luck with his new patients. We get a few of them. We start off with is it Sarah Silverman who starts?
Sarah Silverman's first, yeah.
So she's the first guest star, and she plays the sister of. It's a very obscure person to choose because they do choose someone from Frasier's past.
Do they?
Stephanie, something.
Stephanie Walsh.
Stephanie Walsh, who is the guest who lives in Niall's building in To Kill a Talkingbird.
Oh, is it?
It is. That's Stephanie Walsh.
There you go.
And if you remember that episode, it doesn't end particularly well for the two of them.
No, it doesn't.
She storms off in a huff, but they obviously made up and did date after that at some point.
Yeah.
Because here, I can't remember what Sarah Silverman's character's called.
No, I can't remember.
She plays the sister of Stephanie and kind of says that they had a lot of fun at Frasier's expense. He called her "milady" when they were getting down to business.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had a lot of fun at that. So
Frasier.
Classic Frasier. they can't continue the session. She kind of leaves, just saying like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to keep thinking of you as milady."
Mm-hmm.
The next guy comes in and immediately leaves.
He's just incredibly anxious, and he sits down, and as soon as Frasier starts talking to him, he's just like, "This isn't going to work," and he just walks out
leaves.
again.
So the next patient is Martin, and his intro here is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. There's something about the way he does it is absolutely hilarious. He kind of walks in. He's got like a plant for Frasier as a gift, and he opens the door and walks in. He's like, "Help me, doc, please. I'm crazy." And he does like a sort of shaky voice, but he's clearly just totally taking the piss. And I just love the way he enters there. And while that's going on, he's picking up Frasier for lunch, and Niles is meeting them. Niles gets a phone call from Maris, and she's pretty upset and distraught, so he goes to her aid, which I think he would. I don't know. Martin seems to think it's a very sort of taboo thing. He shouldn't be discussing it with Daphne. He shouldn't mention it to her that he went to see Maris. But if your ex-wife was in like that much distress, you would go and see what's up, and I don't know, I wouldn't consider it much of an issue. So yeah, he does, and he finds out that Maris is being bullied by her new boyfriend. Is it? I wrote Esteban.
Esteban.
He's an Argentine polo player.
Yeah.
He's a polo player.
He's a polo player
from Argentina.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a bit heavy-handed. He's a bit abusive, or so she says, and doesn't like him. And Niles doesn't take kindly to that, so he recommends that she break up with him. This then comes back to haunt them later on.
Yep.
After Frasier's seen another couple of patients. This is kind of, it's weird that the episode is kind of implied to be focused on Niles and Maris, when it's just not really at all
really
until the end.
More of the B plot, if anything.
Yeah. So we have another couple of patients for Frasier. We have a woman, I don't know if it's a guest star or not, a notable guest star. I do kind of recognize her.
Penny Johnson-Gerald.
Yes.
Who I think her name's Carol. She's complaining that people sort of ignore her and don't listen to her, as Frasier's not paying attention to her at all.
He's totally distracted by all the news
and he's trying to figure out his new IKEA chair or whatever. She was quite well known from a few things. She was in 24. More recently, she was in The Orville, the Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek parody. She was not one of the main characters. She had a recurring role in Deep Space Nine as well. Okay. She was like the main character's love interest. I think they wound up getting married towards the end.
Right.
They were like, so she did have I
was going to say she looked kind of familiar, but I wasn't sure if it was. Yeah.
That was in the 90s, and it was quite a big role.
Yeah.
Quite a big TV role. So yeah, she was fairly well known.
Yeah. So yeah, again, she leaves after Frasier's not paying attention to her and whatever. And then we have, now I always forget her name. Who's the next guest star?
Missy Pyle.
I always forget her name.
Yeah.
I always think it's Mimi for some reason, but I don't know why.
She does kind of look like a Mimi.
She looks a bit like a Mimi. Missy Pyle, who's sort of tired of being objectified. She's a very attractive woman, and men just seem to be ignoring her. And at this point, it's after lunch. Frasier's feeling a bit bloated. He's undone his...
He's undone
his trousers, and he's kind of going...
And well, this is after Frasier has his little encounter with Esteban as well.
Oh, so it is. Sorry, that's why. Yeah, no,
he's already been punched in the face.
So
his eyes twitching, and it looks like he's winking at her all the time.
Yeah, this is after the fake baby shower that Niles is throwing to try and avoid admitting to Daphne that.
God, what are those Crane boys like?
Just a little bit of honesty in their lives. They just need to, yeah. So Frasier gets punched by Esteban after he comes to. I was going to say encounter Niles. He just happens to stumble across him, and comes to tell Niles off for getting in the way of his business. So yeah, his encounter with Missy Pyle, Frasier's encounter. There's too many encounters in this episode.
There are too many.
Frasier's encounter with Missy Pyle then ends up with him kind of winking at her, but it's actually just his black eye.
Yeah.
And then he stands up and his trousers fall down because he's loosened his belt, and then he kind of stumbles on top of her. And yeah, you'd lose your license for that.
100%.
I'm pretty sure you would lose
100%.
your license for that. So yeah, she leaves in a bit of a state, understandably, completely. And yeah, then we kind of tie up both plots. Niles and Daphne have a sit down. She was understandably annoyed that he kept it from her, but comes back and kind of says, look, it's fine, it's okay. Niles was just looking out for his ex-wife. And then they hear on the news that Esteban has been found dead in Maris's home. Is it? Yeah, it is at her home, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's been found dead. I'm like, oh no. And we tie up Frasier's plot with the guest from Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Mr. Dan Castellaneta.
Yeah.
Who I always forget is a really great actor as well. He's not just a voice actor. Like
I was thinking about that. He's one of those guys that like you know his name from like voice acting, obviously being in The Simpsons. He's like, I mean, he voices one of the most famous animated characters ever.
Yeah.
And that makes him one of the most famous voice actors ever. But like when you see him in person, I think a lot of people wouldn't actually put together that is who it is.
Yeah.
They'll just see him and be like, oh, it's that guy. And they just like him in stuff because he's always really great in like on-screen guest appearances.
And he's got great voice. Like even when he's doing live acting, his voices are always very
just like his
funny
usual voice is really good.
So that he finally, Frasier's finally able to help one of his patients. Just he's struggling with. It's kind of echoes what Frasier did when he moved out to Seattle. Left his life behind in a previous city and came, and he's kind of wondering what to do with his life. So Frasier's finally able to help, and that kind of rounds things off. You know, he's able to help someone, so he's not going to give up this private practice endeavor quite yet, despite almost sexually assaulting a woman and
just having a bad time with all of his other patients.
Yeah, just not.
I do find it really funny how it wraps up with Sarah Silverman when he's like, because she's just laughing at him.
Yeah.
But she's talking about being depressed, and she keeps kind of flipping back and forth between talking about like, oh, I'm depressed all the time, I'm really miserable, and just like bursting out into laughter. Yeah. And then when she leaves and Frasier says like, oh, well, good luck with that crippling depression, and she's like, haha, It's a really great performance by Sarah Silverman, just a little guest spot. And it's just such a funny little character.
I'm not a fan of Sarah Silverman, I have to say. No,
I think she's really good. I think she's really funny.
I think she's okay. I think there's something about her her style of comedy that's just a bit... It kind of grates on your nerves a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
It's coming off the back of SNL. I think that's kind of something that applies to a lot of people that are on SNL.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I've liked her in something. She was really good.
I think she's a better actor than she is a comedian.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
So I think watching her in things, I'm not as put off by watching her like stand up and stuff. Unlike
I don't actually know if I've watched an awful lot of her stand up, to be totally honest. I don't know if I've seen any of it.
I'm not a huge fan of it, I've got to say.
Yeah.
So that is like part one of the episode. It's very strangely structured, that it focuses very much on Frasier and his return to private practice over Maris and Niles, which is the opposite to the following episode, which is very much focused on Niles and his response to Maris's murder.
Yeah. Or Maris being a murderer.
Maris's murder? If it's like possessive?
I guess.
The murder belongs to her.
Yeah.
That's correct, right?
The murder that...
Is that grammatically correct?
Maris is... Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. One of the things that I like about this, you mentioned Peg being a really good little side character.
Yeah.
Peg, the temp, is played by Valerie Mahaffey, who was in The Powers That Be, which is what David Hyde Pierce did before Frasier. It was 1992, like early 90s. And the two of them played a husband and wife.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I've never really watched The Powers That Be. It didn't go for that long, but I have watched a little compilation of like David Hyde Pierce's clips in that, and he's very funny in it. It's just David Hyde Pierce's physical comedy, a lot of it. But he's playing like a politician who's suicidal. There's all these jokes about him kind of trying to kill himself, but it's just David Hyde Pierce doing his physical comedy stuff, and it's
cheery.
It's a bit dark, but it's very funny. Okay. I should probably watch that at some point.
Yeah,
I reckon it could be quite good.
Another podcast.
The powers the podcast that be.
The podcast that be. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I've kind of skirted through most of the plot there. I've not really focused on anything individual because I don't know that there's anything. There's a lot of funny little jokes with like the guest stars and the patients. Other than that, it's a decent episode. I wouldn't say it's particularly great. I marked it very much down the middle. I gave it 3. Yeah, 3 cups of coffee. I think it's a strong episode because of the plot and because of like how interesting it is. It keeps you engaged, and then you've got the guest stars, which are very funny. Some of the interactions with Frasier and the patients is very funny. But overall, it just feels like it's missing a bit.
Yeah,
some sort of snappier dialogue or.
Yeah, I'm not. I was a little bit more generous, and I give it a 4.
Okay,
but I do agree that it's not perfect. I really like it. I really like this little 2-parter and the whole plot of Maris killing her boyfriend. And, and I really like the guest stars. I like the whole thing with Frasier in private practice. I don't really like how the episode jumps about between the 2 plots. It's not. I feel like it's not structured especially well. I don't hate it, and I know that doing those 2 side by side, there's not really a better way to do it. I just don't really like that it jumps back and forth. But one thing I do like about it, I kind of like that the Niles Mara stuff is more in the background. It's not at the forefront for a lot of it. And then you kind of just think that the plot is Niles has had lunch with Maris and Daphne and needs to keep it from Daphne, and that's it. That's all that's going to happen. That's the plot. And then that way, when we get the end and it's Maris has murdered her boyfriend and it's a cliffhanger, it's a lot more impactful, which I really like. So I do like that it was structured in that way, I guess.
It reminds me a little bit of oh god, what's the episode called? Season 10, the first of the 3-parter in season 10.
Oh yeah, Bristle While You Work.
Bristle While You Work, thank you. Where it's, the main plot is all about hiring a new housekeeper, Frasier and Martin, but you've got Niles and Roz going over his toothache and all the luck and everything, and then it ends with that big cliffhanger that Niles needs to go into the hospital straight away. It kind of reminds me a bit of that, where it keeps you sort of at bay for most of the episode, then just smacks you right in the face with this big cliffhanger. I mean, it's by no means a bad episode.
Yeah, no.
It just kind of leaves me wanting a bit more. So we'll see how you feel about the 2-part, the 2-part, the second part.
Yep.
The part numero 2. Murder Most Maris, which is a play on something. Murder Most Foul.
Murder Most Foul.
What is that? Is it a TV show?
It was a line from Hamlet.
Oh.
And then it was the name
I'm thinking of Murder, She Wrote.
You think you are thinking of Murder, She Wrote?
Murder Most Foul. Is Murder Most Foul is it not?
There was a film. There was a Miss Marple film called Murder, She Wrote. I don't think the book was called Murder, She Wrote. I think it was just the film adaptation was called.
Murder Most Foul.
It's called Murder Most Foul.
Murder Most Foul, yeah. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm sure it was. I know it from something more than Shakespeare.
Well, it's just a line. It's just like
I know, but like
a phrase.
I'm sure I know it from something in particular. Maybe not.
Well, in Death Trap.
Oh,
Frasier just says that.
Murder Most Foul. Murder. Yeah, okay, right, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, this kind of wraps up, well, it doesn't even wrap up, but it continues the plot from where we left off. Frasier has been punched in the face by a man now dead. Niles is being hounded by the press and by the police as well. Turns out he was the one who gave Maris the murder weapon, an antique crossbow that she was going to use for, was it a play or something she was practicing for?
It's like they reenact artwork. There's a famous mural of someone getting murdered by Attila the Hun with a crossbow.
There we go. So he was lending her that, or did he lend her that before?
I think he lent it. Yeah, after when they had lunch together.
When they had lunch, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think where it fits in, but yeah, it must be that point. So he's obviously implicated somewhat in the murder of Esteban, and he's been hounded by the press. They're going after him. Daphne's got her doctor's checkup as well, so he's kind of trying to handle that as well. And you just see Niles gradually getting more and more worn out as the episode goes on, which leads to some hilarity. Like just how he kind of jumps about. You don't really know what's going on in his head. Like when people are talking to him, he's like, it's like just kind of, and yeah, Frasier just gets right in the middle of it as well when he fumbles his words somewhat to the news crew and says that Niles and Maris should be executed rather than exonerated.
Yeah.
I love Daphne's little comeback to that when she's like, "Oh, we know you didn't mean any." I don't know what is it she says. We knew you just wanted to ruin our lives. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you meant help.
Yeah.
And like her little like snappy, clearly angry and frustrated responses to it. Yeah. So the episode kind of goes on, and we don't. Maris gets arrested. She does get arrested and into jail, and she keeps pestering Niles for help and what's going on and blah, 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 until Niles finally just has a total breakdown, a total panic attack, and decides to remove all of his clothing in Cafe Nervosa. It's when he and Roz are ordering coffee, and Roz takes the last straw.
Yeah.
This has always bothered me a little bit, because she takes the last straw, and then Niles, who asks for a straw, the barista says, like, no, that was the last one. And Niles is like, okay, the last straw. Like, couldn't Roz just offer him her straw? He's clearly, like, having an issue at the moment.
She does.
Does she?
I think, she does. But at that point, he's just
he's already
snapped.
gone. Okay.
Like, because it wasn't really about the straw.
No, of course
really?
not.
But like, yeah, I think it's more that just like that little thing pushed him over the edge. And then Roz kind of says like, oh, you can just take my straw. It's fine. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just going to get naked and have a breakdown.
Yeah, so I do like that little scene. Again, credit to David Hyde Pierce's sort of physical acting.
It's so funny.
Just the way he just gradually is like taking his clothes off, and he goes and sits down and opens up a newspaper, and he's just sitting reading it in the corner. It's when Frasier comes in and is like, Niles, are you okay? Yes, I'm good. Don't touch me.
I really love that. I'm fine now. Don't touch me.
And then I love how defensive Roz gets as well. She's so great in this scene, like helping him out, and then she like, it's almost like a sort of bank robbery.
It's like a hold up.
Yeah. She's like, and don't anyone call the police. It's like, yeah, Roz, you handled that wonderfully. Yeah, well, there's nothing worse than waking up naked with a bunch of cops around you. Yeah, I love how Roz just stands up for everyone there. But yeah, after having his little breakdown, Niles is perkier than ever. He manages to get back on track, and he finally stands up to everyone, stands up to Maris. He calls out Daphne for... I mean, he probably shouldn't call out Daphne. She is pregnant and hormonal, but he does anyway and say that she's been a bit of a nightmare recently. Calls out Martin for... What is it, going out and shooting cans behind the police station while he was trying to get out of holding,
squeezing off a few rounds into a dumpster. I love the way that he phrased that.
Yeah. And then finally he tells Frasier where to stick it for making this whole issue about him, which he always does, which they must be used to by now, surely.
Yeah.
But Frasier gets one last chance to use his. Are you all forgetting that 3 days ago I was punched in the face by a man now dead? Was this the line that you were talking about last week?
Yes.
With the
delivery when he's they're all snapping at him, and he's like, "Fine." It's great. Yeah. If there's one thing that Kelsey Grammer can do well, it's that. It's totally over the top line delivery.
Yeah. So Maris is still in jail, but everyone else is kind of free. Niles is still we find out later he's still being hounded by the reporters a wee bit. But he's overall in the clear. He didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, everyone else is kind of back to normal, I guess. And that's that.
Yeah.
No more guest stars in this episode, though.
No, there's not really any guest stars in this.
It's a shame. Used them all up in the previous one.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So does this episode hold up?
I think it
does.
First
part? Yeah.
I think it does. I give it the same. I give it another 4.
4, okay.
Because I still just think it's. Think it's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the lines, a lot of the dialogue, and how the character. Because there's not any guests. There's not any like particularly big, set pieces. They're not going to any new locations. Mm-hmm. It's all just the characters bouncing off of each other in this sort of stressful situation.
Yeah.
And I think they all do a really good job.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I give it a 3 as well, same as the first part. I did give it a 4 to start with, and then I started thinking about why I gave it a 4. I was like, don't really want to give it a 4 anymore.
Fair enough.
I think, for me, my favourite parts are Frasier's total selfishness and ruining it for everyone. I find really funny in this episode. Like his whole making the fact that he got punched all about himself, and his line delivery there is great. The scene in the cafe with the news crew, and then like the aftermath of that, and Daphne making fun of him, I think are great. And then I like Niles getting naked. I think that scene's great. Mm-hmm. But all the rest surrounding those little pieces, I'm not huge on.
Yeah.
Like it is very much a follow-on from the previous episode, but I don't know if it holds up quite as much on its own as its own episode. So yeah, I ranked it a little bit lower, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. Is that your phone buzzing?
No, you can't prove anything. Not that we're recording, and I'll have to listen to it later. But just forgot to put it on silent. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So it's probably, save for the finale, one of the more memorable plots of the last season.
Oh yeah, I would say so.
It's definitely one that is coming up, and you're gonna enjoy. It's like they're not bad episodes. Yeah. It just I don't know. They kind of leave me wanting a bit more.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
To the next episode.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have
anything. You don't have anything else to talk about?
Don't have anything to add.
Okay. Cool. Guns N Neuroses. Fish and chips. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the title pun, I think you mentioned it a good few seasons back as well. The title pun is enough to give this episode a few extra points as it stands.
Maybe, yeah.
Like,
yeah. It is funny. I think
it's very clever.
I like having a little double meaning. I guess it's not really a double meaning. It's more that it's sort of referencing both plots simultaneously, which I like.
Yeah. So the guns half of the plot is more of the B plot. It's Martin has been told to get his guns out of the gun singular.
Gun.
He's just got the one.
Only got the one.
Out of Frasier's apartment. He's been meaning to do it for ages, but with Niles' kid coming along, he's kind of wanting to get rid of it altogether. But in doing so, Niles accidentally sets off the gun. This whole scene. Throws the banana.
Kind of catch the banana, and accidentally falls over and knocks the gun off the table, and
I don't know what that bullet is made of, man, but it like bounces all through the apartment. It's like
it goes through a chair, takes the head off a statue, and then
it lands in the fireplace above the fireplace.
Cracks the fireplace.
Wild. So yeah, they're trying to. Martin, Niles, and Daphne are trying to cover that up before Frasier gets home, and they do this whole, when Frasier comes in the house, they're all like sort of leaning on the different things, trying to cover up the holes and broken ornaments. And that, I mean, that is kind of funny.
Yeah,
it's not really much to it. It's pretty straightforward. They accidentally shoot a gun and then they cover it up. Like that's pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah, it's all right.
The Neuroses part of the episode is all about Lilith.
Yeah.
Well, Frasier and Lilith, the neurotic divorcees. She's in town for a conference, and trying to catch up with Frasier. She has a. It's never really said like how they're friends, but one of the friends from the conference.
Yeah, I guess just they know each other from kind of working together, working in the same circles.
What is it what is it she's a leading expert on?
I can't remember.
I can't remember the line.
It is something relatively funny.
Silly, yeah. So she sets up Lilith on a blind date. She is encouraging Lilith to be set up on a date, and then just happens to bump into Frasier at Cafe Nervosa. She then, you see where this is going.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've already seen the episode, you know where it's going.
You know where it's going,
but
if not, then you can figure it out.
Yeah. Frasier bumps into her at Nervosa. He asks her out, she kind of says, "Oh, I've got a friend who might be interested in you," and he takes that as her being coy and asking him out on a date, when actually she's wanting to put him on a blind date with Lilith.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're both under the assumption that they're going out for a blind date, but they're also meeting each other beforehand for a drink. So there's a bit of this kind of sort of the classic farce where you know as the audience what's going on, but the two of them are just like making these little jokes about having to call their date and make sure they're on time and everything. When it's all very silly, and it's one of those episodes where it's not really anything particularly notable, but it's just kind of fun to watch, mainly due to like BB Newirth and Kelsey Grammer just having great chemistry on screen. Frasier and Lilith I don't know, I just enjoy watching them together in scenes like this. Like we've had it before where it's just the two of them together, like in a hotel or in the apartment together, and they just, I don't know, it just works. It's just enjoyable to watch.
They do really have really good chemistry. I mean, they've worked together for years.
I mean, what, 20 years at this point, maybe?
That
long? No.
Well, yeah, Frasier wasn't introduced. Frasier would be about 20 years ago. His character was introduced. Lilith was a couple of years after that.
Was she introduced later?
Later than Frasier.
In Cheers.
She was introduced as a love interest for Frasier, right, like after Diane. So.
Of course he was with Dan first.
Still probably would have been about 17 years or so.
Yeah. So that's a long time to work with someone on and off, but yeah. And they have this lovely little scene where there's a arguing couple in the room next to theirs with an adjoining door. That's weird, right? In a hotel room?
I guess. Well, they do that. So I think the idea is that they're like adjoining suites.
But why would you book separate people in adjoining suites?
I don't know. Well, you can lock the things. You can lock the doors.
I know, but
so people won't just immediately have access to it.
That seems strange to me.
I guess.
But whatever. That's not the point. Yeah, so there's but that's weird.
It is a little weird.
I don't know. I wouldn't be comfortable with random strangers in the adjoining suite behind me. Anyway, that's not the point. They counsel this arguing couple because he's got a bit of a wandering eye at dinner, and she catches him. And the two of them, being psychiatrists, are able to help out. They make up and then some, as we hear from the bedpost knocking behind them at the end of the scene, which is a bit, I was going to say graphic, but like for Frasier, like that's, like you hear her like moaning, and the bed like knocking together. That's quite a lot for Frasier.
It is a little much. It is a little much.
But yeah, whatever. But the two of them, they fall asleep in each other's arms, Frasier and Lilith, and kind of say goodbye. And I don't know if it's intentional, this being the last time that we see Lilith in the show.
Yeah.
But there is very much like a sort of long goodbye between the two of them. There is sort of, the camera does hang on a little bit longer on each of their faces as they say goodbye, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's nice.
I like the fact that, I mean, the first kind of half of the episode is them sort of avoiding each other. Or it's Frasier is avoiding Lilith.
Yeah.
And he's making comments about like, oh, we always play these games where we like try and avoid each other. And Lilith genuinely just seems to be trying to get in touch with him to catch up with him. But yeah, whether they're both avoiding each other or if it's just on Frasier's end, they're not really communicating properly. They're not being very honest with each other. And then we get to the bit when they're in the hotel together and they kind of say to each other, like, actually, the dates have fallen through. We've not got anything better. Why don't we, just have a drink, have some dinner together?
Yeah.
And then they wind up, they're sort of bonding over, like, not being able to go out and date very successfit's
Frasier references Miss Right.
Miss Right, yeah. And, I think when they're just sort of open and honest with each other, it's nice. They've got a nice little bit of chemistry.
Yeah, it's nice. And again, it's another pretty decent episode, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about it, but I quite like it. There's again not a whole lot to it, but because of the inclusion of Baby New Earth and because it's a very grounded episode. There's nothing too wacky or weird. I mean, there is a gun going off in the living room, but
there is gunplay in the living room.
There is gunplay in the living room. That doesn't play a huge part in the plot.
Yeah.
Or at least the plot that you're meant to focus on. So I quite like it. I think it's good. I give it a middle of the road 3. Because it's nothing special, but it is a decent episode.
Yeah, I agree pretty much entirely. I gave it a 3 as well. It's the plot's fine. I don't think there's anything that's incredibly funny. There's one bit when I think it's the first time that we see Lilith when she's in Nervosa talking with our friend Nancy, and she's kind of complaining about this guy that she's been seeing that they wind up breaking up because he thought that she was too uptight. Or can you believe that? And she says like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lil," and she says like, "Lilith, my name is Lilith."
Yeah,
and I really like that delivery and the setup of her complaining about people thinking she's uptight and. I love Lilith so much. I'm sorry. She's just the best. She's so good. And it's nothing incredible. Definitely not the best Lilith episode.
No.
But any episode with Lilith in it is good.
It's still enjoyable.
Yeah.
Good. Then I'll move on to what I think is.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to mention a couple of the little guests. And,
we got guests.
Make reference. Well, they're not really, but Nancy is played by Christine Dunford, who has been in various other things. She's done a lot of voice acting recently. She was in the new Horizon game.
All right.
Horizon Forbidden West. Oh. I didn't write down who she played, but she did that. And she was in.
Finished that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And the new Mass Effect, like the remade Mass Effect, and a few other things. And the couple from the room next door, Sean and Erin, are played by David Burke and Rachel Harris. David Burke was in The Tick with...
Peter Serafinowicz.
No, not that one. The original one.
Oh, the original one.
With Patrick Warburton.
Okay.
He was like the other main character. He's like the little guy. And Rachel Harris was in Suits and also Lucifer, the... Netflix / Amazon Prime / Netflix again series or however it was.
Did it swap over?
It did. It swapped over and then because I think it got cancelled at Amazon Prime and then picked up again on Netflix.
Okay.
Like the DC Comics Lucifer. She's like one of the main characters in that.
Oh, okay.
And she's really good.
Good.
There you go. Sorry.
I don't
we'll quickly mention those.
Recognize any of them from anything, I'm afraid.
No, fair enough. I always recognize Erin because
she looks like I know her from something. But
yeah. She's probably been in a few more things that you might know her from more recently.
Yeah.
It's not like this is like a, guest star role. It's just one of her early, my kind of minor roles.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's fine. No. Please do interrupt, because otherwise we end up having to go back and do guest stars in this. Yes. Yeah. So SeaBee Jeebies is up next.
Yep.
Frasier is feeling a little bit jealous by Niall's celebrity because of the Maris's trial that's going on at the moment. Niles is getting quite a bit of attention in the media and by certain famous people, such as Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. Who else? What's he goes to someone's concert. I can't remember who he says. It's not Bruce Springsteen.
No, I can't remember.
It's someone.
It's someone famous.
I didn't write
and then
down.
it was but it's actually at someone's birthday party. It wasn't a concert. It was someone's birthday party.
A private event. Niles and Daphne.
It was the guy. It was like a famous architect. It was the guy who designed the Museum of Pop Culture or whatever in Seattle. It was like one of the kind of famous things. I read that online. I didn't actually recognize him by name, but yeah, that was the guy whose birthday party he went to.
Obviously, very famous names at the time for Seattle.
Yeah,
you know. Oh yeah, of course, because Microsoft's in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't click. I thought it was just like he was randomly invited to Bill Gates' house, but yeah, of course he is.
It was
Bill Gates. Yeah. So yeah, Frasier's feeling a bit jealous just by all this. He's feeling totally overshadowed. Niles is able to book restaurants that Frasier can't get into and things like that. So when he gets nominated for 2 SeaBees,
mm-hmm.
making him the most nominated,
I think so,
of all time, I think, he tries to use that to kind of get back at Niles and show that he's that he's still the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it doesn't go well.
Of course not.
He hires a journalist, or Kenny hires a journalist to come and do a profile on him that just seems more interested in Niles and what's going on with the trial.
Yeah.
He tries to get a date, but he can't because Kenny's accidentally booked it first thing on the Saturday morning.
It's a breakfast affair.
Award show. He ends up having to pretend that Roz's sister Denise, who's in town,
mm-hmm.
is his date. She has a wonderful time of it when her husband leaves her over the phone in the middle of the of the award show. It just all goes horribly wrong. He doesn't get to do his speech. He gets beaten by a little skater boy and then a dead man. Mm-hmm. And it's like it's sometimes you're watching this and you're just like, oh, this is horrible. Frasier's so insufferable. He deserves everything he gets. And then other times you're like, I actually kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
There's a point, I think there's a line somewhere around getting beaten by a 20-year-old skater that
mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, he doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I do feel a little bit bad for him in this one because he doesn't really do anything to bring it on himself.
No, not at all.
He's kind of the rivalry with Niles in this one is very one-sided. Niles isn't really doing anything to aggravate it.
It's just that he's jealous that Niles is getting all this attention.
There have been plenty of episodes like Everyone's a Critic is probably a good example where mm-hmm. Niles starts to become a bit more notable and he gets the job working for the Monocle, the newspaper, as the arts critic, and suddenly he's getting all these doors open for him and whatever, and Frasier gets very jealous, but Niles is actively rubbing it in his face.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's just Frasier's just being jealous.
Yeah, he's actually trying not to rub it in his face.
He shows up
like
and he kind of turns down interviewing with this journalist and specifically says like, no, I'm just here to support Frasier. I'm not, I don't really want to talk about Maris.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel sorry from this episode. It's also not a great episode.
No, it's not.
So I think that kind of, it feels like all the cards are against him. They're mm-hmm. deliberately stacked against him this whole episode, and that I don't know. You compared it nicely to Everyone's a Critic, right? Mm-hmm. Because that starts with him being jealous and then trying to get his own back with Poppy, and then Niles kind of fighting back as well, and we get that kind of two-sided sibling rivalry, which is kind of nice. Whereas here, it's just Frasier getting everything flung against him for half an hour.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of a shame. I don't know. He doesn't help himself overly, but
no,
I don't know. Yeah, I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
I like the scene at the end as well when everything's just gone to complete chaos. He knocks out
when screaming
the old guy's glass eye,
yeah,
and then he starts to sing the like award show theme song to the tune of Moon River as everyone's panicking
screaming and shouting, and
Denise is
wailing, and Roz is. I can't remember what Roz is doing. Is Roz arguing with Denise, or is she still laughing hysterically?
She's trying to make her feel better. She's trying to say like, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Like it'll be okay." And then Denise kind of says, "How would you know? You've never had a husband." And Roz just kind of gives up.
I do find it really funny when Roz then immediately goes and accepts the award.
Yeah,
and just starts
cheers,
crying with joy at the fact that her sister is having a bad time.
I mean, Denise is like actively.
Denise is such
awful.
A bitch.
Yeah,
it's
totally rubbing the whole thing in.
It is very funny.
Yeah, it's like it kind of puts Frasier-Niles rivalry in perspective because their arguments are they're not overly nasty towards each other. Mm-hmm. It's just their own insecurities lead to these weird rivalries.
Yeah.
Whereas Denise is like actively cruel to Roz.
Yeah.
Buying her a dress that deliberately doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So that she can fit into it instead, and making fun of her not having a husband and rubbing in the fact that she's getting hit on by the valet, is it? I think.
Yeah.
She's just not very nice. Is that the same Denise that Frasier meets when he flies out to Wisconsin?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is the same actress.
Who was quote unquote happily married.
Yeah. It's because every time, I think it must be the same actress because I always think she looks like Parker Posey. I always see her and think it's Parker Posey, then I'm like, wait, no, it's not.
Oh,
but I think it is the same actress.
Yeah. So yeah, again, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being overly critical of episodes recently, but it feels like there's not a whole lot to these plots.
Yep.
It feels like they're kind of taking one idea and stretching it as thin as they can. Sometimes they get some good jokes in there, but sometimes they don't. Maybe it's just me. But yeah, this episode doesn't really do much for me. It does have some funny moments, so I didn't give it a 1, but I did give it a 2. It's my lowest rated of the disc.
Yeah. I agree, actually. I give it a 2 as well.
Yeah.
It's fine. There's nothing in it that makes it really bad. I don't find it super uncomfortable to watch. I think the end has its sort of cringy moments, which I usually don't enjoy, but it's not nearly as bad as a lot of other episodes have been, or
it's not too bad.
Other shows that rely a lot more heavily on kind of cringe humor. Mm-hmm. It's not nearly as bad as that, so I don't hate it. But it's I always find it a bit forgettable. I feel like if there's one episode that I'm just not going to remember ever, it's probably this one. It's just there's something about it that I just don't care.
See, there's an episode on the next disc that I always forget.
Yeah.
Every single time I'm watching it, I forget that exists.
Yeah.
This one, at least, I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's very forgettable, but I always remember the stuff with Roz and Denise because I remember that being quite funny.
Yeah.
So I always remember this episode because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fine. I don't think we have any guest stars really on this one. No. Next up, one that we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah.
That we discussed briefly in one of the bonus episodes.
Yep.
Christmas special for season 11. We have High Holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Very much one of the like quintessential Frasier episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming in off the street and watching Frasier, this would very much be one of the ones that you would be recommended, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's wild. So Freddie's a goth.
Yeah.
He's come in to visit from Boston. and he is a goth now.
Yep.
One of his friends / maybe girlfriend, not really sure, it's a bit ambiguous, is in town visiting relatives and is also a goth, so he's obviously trying to step up and impress her. So he's he's very much sidelined in this episode. Like, we don't have that many scenes with Freddy in it.
Yeah, not too many.
So I think the other stuff kind of overshadows him.
It does.
But yeah, he is here, and he is a goth, and he is going out to concerts and partying with another goth. Niles is feeling a bit left out after everyone else is talking about their rebellious phases, comparing themselves to Freddy. Was it Daphne went shoplifting and held an entire frozen turkey between her legs?
Yeah.
And yeah, so Niles never really had that rebellious period, and he's feeling a bit left out because everyone else did. So he goes out and buys some Mary Jane in the form of an edible brownie.
Some of the devil's lettuce.
Yep, from Roz.
From Roz.
Which I love that little
so
joke.
Funny. Yeah.
What Frasier says, like, where did you even find something like that? And Roz just steps into screen and says, "Here you go, Niles." Like, chucks it down on the table. Through a series of unfortunate events, Martin unintentionally eats Niles' brownie and then replaces it with a normal brownie, leading us to this wonderful little role reversal where Niles very much isn't high and thinks that he is.
Yeah.
And Martin doesn't realize that he's high and is very high. Some of these lines are like the best of the show.
Oh yeah,
you know, like,
absolutely.
This whole little scene. We'll get to that in a second. And then finally we've got Frasier's plot. Kind of, he's meeting up with this advert. What's her name? I can't remember her name. French lady.
Natalie,
a gorgeous French lady. Obviously, very much like stereotyped as like.
Yeah,
attractive French woman.
Yeah,
because she does not really have much of a personality in this episode.
No, not really
at all.
I think,
which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah,
but, and yeah, Frasier and Niles say as much. They're not really interested in any other aspect of her.
She's an attractive woman with a nice accent, and that's about it.
Yeah, bleh. Yeah, they're talking about the nice things that she could say in that accent.
Yes.
But she's hiring Frasier for an advert in like Seattle tourism or something. And it just so happens that Martin is walking by with Eddie at that point, and she's quite taken by Eddie. So Eddie steals Frasier's thunder, and they use Frasier's voice, but CGI Eddie's body for him. And it's weird. It's yeah. The CGI from those days are not great, so it is quite noticeable, but it's also so funny that you kind of
it's very funny
forgive it.
Yeah.
So that he strikes out with the lovely Natalie, and ends up back at home where he can just witness the absolute carnage that Niles and Martin are causing between the two of them. Oh god, you take this because you love this.
I just think it's so funny. It's the Martin coming home high and talking about wanting to be a giant and barbecue pudding chips and what is it when he gets he's like, oh, I've been having these great ideas, I've been writing them down. What do you think this means? Dog army. And oh my god, the line delivery, John Mahoney just knocks it out of the park. Yeah. He's so funny. And he comes out and he's just in his boxers. He's wearing like an apron and a t-shirt and boxers, and he's like, I've got a good reason. Fridge pants.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is just wonderful to watch him. And to be fair, David Hyde Pierce as well, his like whole pretending to be high is, oh yeah, we all knew someone at school who was like that.
Oh yeah,
who was like pretending to be drunk or pretending to be high or whatever, and he kind of nails that attitude of like what he thinks being high is like.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, it's wonderful. The whole scene. I don't think we can do it justice going over it.
Oh no, but like it's man, it's so funny.
Yeah, it's really excellent. And yeah, so that whole side gets kind of tied up. Freddie and Frasier have this sort of heartfelt talk about women and being rejected after Freddie comes home in tears that his girlfriend or friend or whoever has left him at the concert, which is nice, but I don't know, it feels out of place. It feels like Freddie's goth phase could have been its own episode, and it feels like Niles and Martin getting high could have been another episode.
Yeah,
it all feels kind of shoehorned into one, which is a shame.
The Freddie goth stuff doesn't really tie into it being Christmas.
Not at all.
Actually, to be fair, neither really does the Niles and Martin stuff. It's not real, or the Frasier or Seattle tourism thing.
That's true.
None of it really has to take place at Christmas, so you quite easily could have, split the Freddie stuff and the Niles Martin stuff into different episodes.
Nonetheless, we get a good episode out of it.
I think it's got lots of great bits, and I don't really mind that it's like, you could have fleshed the Freddie stuff out into a better episode, but I think it's all right as it is. I think we get enough time on it to enjoy it. I don't think it feels like rushed or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. Did you notice the little it's almost off screen, but when Roz leaves the cafe?
Oh yeah. With the man dressed as Santa Claus.
The man dressed as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Just reaffirming our assumptions that she has a thing for
Old
Santa. Saint Nick.
After, what is it, We Two Kings in season...
We Two Kings, yeah.
Was that season 10? Season 9?
Season 10. Yeah, 10. Yeah, 10. It was pretty recently we talked about it.
Yeah.
You're a ho-ho-ho.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that little, like, fetish, arguably. It's kind of a fetish.
Sort
of Roz.
She just fancies Santa.
Fancies Santa, yeah.
It's fine. It's not a problem.
We don't judge here.
There's nothing wrong with fancying Santa, I don't think.
It's all good. Are you trying to tell me something?
That I fancy Santa?
Yeah.
Maybe. You know what? They justify it, and I mean, now we're just talking about We Two Kings again.
Well,
but
yeah.
they justify it with saying, like, he gives really good presents, he's a good listener, he's like a good provider. I don't know. There's reason to think that Santa would be a good partner.
Okay.
What? You're acting like I'm completely nuts in saying that. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Have you not seen the Santa Claus movies?
No.
I watched the Santa Claus movies this Christmas.
I'm not huge on Tim Allen.
I like Tim Allen. I think he's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
He's good in that.
Do you like him because you fancy Santa Claus?
I just fancy Tim Allen.
Okay, right. That's more justifiable, I would say. Yeah. Okay, right. Back to High
Holidays.
What did you give it?
I gave it a 5. I think this is probably the best episode of the season. I think it's definitely one of my favorite of the Christmas. I mean, obviously we talked about the Christmas specials and ranking the Christmas specials, but it's one of my favorite of the Christmas specials. It's one that I knew was going to be. It's like there are the 3 that I think are all pretty much perfect in their own right. This and Merry Christmas, Mrs. Moskowitz, and Perspectives at Christmas. I love the 3 of them. I think they're all like some of the best episodes of the show, as well as the best Christmas specials of any show ever. I just love them. Yeah, I think it's great. I only had literally one note when I was writing my notes for this, and it's just High Holidays is pretty cracking. Yeah, I just think it's a great episode. It's a lot of fun.
My only note was Dog Army.
No,
it wasn't really, but it should have been, because that's yeah. Okay, no, I do love High Holidays, okay? But in rewatching it, the disconnect between the different plot points does kind of bother me a bit. So I was a little bit more critical. I only give it a 4.
Ooh.
Like, the humor and everything is so on point for the rest of the episode that it really is, as you say, one of the best episodes of the season, and one of the best Christmas episodes as well. But it also does suffer from this kind of back and forth between all these different plot lines that they do kind of tie into each other a little bit, but not enough to justify how thin they are. At least the Frasier and Natalie and the Freddie as a goth plots. It feels like the focus is very much on Niles and Martin in this episode. Yeah. And the other plots just kind of are quite thin, but feed in at some points, you know?
Yeah, I'm not particularly fond of Frasier and kind of trying to get with Natalie and that little thing. I mean, the tourism stuff lends to the joke of, you know, Martin being high and seeing Eddie talking with Frasier's voice.
The advert.
That's funny, and so obviously it does, you know, it does some good, but yeah, it's not great. I could, to be honest, have done with getting rid of that and replacing it with more of Freddie. Maybe something that kind of connects. Like, we don't see Freddie interacting with either high Martin or thinks he's high Niles.
No, that's true.
So having that, if we took a little bit of time away from, you know, Frasier and Natalie and put in a scene or two with that, that could possibly have made it a lot funnier, and it would help to kind of tie the two plots together.
Yeah. To be fair, actually, they could have wiped that whole second half of Frasier and Natalie, just had them doing the advert, just have it be an advertising person, not anyone in particular that Frasier's trying to get with. Give him the tape. He's replaced it with Eddie, and then spend some more time in the apartment on on the funny stuff. Yeah. You can't win them all, and
you can't.
I think as far as it goes, it is still a pretty great episode. So yeah, we can pick holes in it all day, but it's still great. So okay, last episode on the disc, we have Frasier-Lite, which is another one that I think I mentioned last week because I thought it was something different. Yeah. I confused it with The Devil and Dr. Phil
because there's the sort of rivalry with Fraser and what's his name?
Bald bully character. Wayne Shafter.
Wayne Shafter.
What a name! Imagine being a bully with a surname like Shafter. That's just
asking for trouble.
That's too on the nose, man. That's but no, I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed this episode because I usually think back on it and I'm like, it's kind of mid, it's not great, it's kind of just there, but it's actually really, really funny. The whole episode's really good. So the KCL team are competing with KPXY. I think it's just the two of them. Is it more than just the two of them?
I think it's just the two of them. I think it's
just the two radio stations in a like weight loss challenge. So they all do like a group weigh-in, and then they, over the course of however many weeks, they compete to lose the most weight. It's not really something you see these days, but they used to do those kind of things on TV quite a lot. You had like, is it The Greatest Loser? Is that what the show's called? Biggest Loser? Biggest Loser. They've kind of shifted away from TV shows about people's weight, and not without good reason.
Not without, it's a very delicate thing to. I was going to say it's a hard thing to get right. I don't know if there's necessarily there is actually a way to do it right.
No. I mean, it's shows like The Biggest Loser are quite sort of exploitative of
100%
overweight people, which is just a shame. Here, it's kind of no one there is particularly like obese. I guess it's just a challenge, but yeah, when it comes to things like losing weight, it's kind of, if you can avoid it, you could do any kind of challenge between the two radio stations. I think if it was done these days, you probably would do something a bit different.
Yeah.
But anyway, for the time, it was perfectly acceptable, I guess. And it's not, they don't make any like fat jokes really or anything like that, I don't think, to my memory.
I don't think there's anything too offensive.
There's the occasional like jab from Bulldog that you would kind of expect from a character like Bulldog.
Yeah. But
other than that, there's nothing really. He calls Frasier a lard ass at one point or something.
I think the only thing that it's not even really. It's definitely not offensive because it's not really even a crack about his weight. But when they do the first weigh-in, well, not the first weigh-in, but like the first weigh-in after the first one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When the weigh-in after they are supposed to have been losing weight, yeah. And Frasier's actually gained a little bit of weight, and Shafter, his rival from KPXY, says like, "Oh, when they say take one for the team, they don't mean another crawler." And he says, "Shut up, Shafter, you're a crawler." And I think that's really, I don't know why that line gets me every time, but it's funny.
I love those kind of insults. I do them all the time. See, when you say like just using these random like words to insult people, I think I think those kind of jokes are so funny. But yeah, so the episode kind of revolves very much around that. Roz takes up smoking to try and lose weight. Noel Shempsky Roz kind of manipulates him a little bit by saying if they win the trip to Vegas, if they win the challenge, then what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
So Noel's like starving himself and passing out and excruciating stomach cramps and everything.
Yeah.
Bulldog gets like addicted to diet pills and won't stop running about the apartment. It's all funny, and I'm trying to think if there's another one, but I think this might be the last time we have the KCL squad in one like focused episode.
This is the last appearance of Bulldog.
Is it?
This is the last time he appears.
He's in the finale, is he not?
I don't think so.
Is he not? Oh, I thought he was.
I mean, it said on IMDb that this is the last appearance of Bulldog.
Maybe.
I could be wrong. It's possible that he shows up right at the very end.
Yeah.
There's the scene
when
there's
thinking.
Like kind of the ensemble cast watching Frasier giving his last radio performance. Spoilers for the show. Spoilers. But like, I mean, it's the finale of Frasier. What else is it going to be?
Yeah.
And it's possible that he might be there, and it's just they're not counting that because it's just a sort of little cameo.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
But yeah.
No, it's I love the interactions between all the KCL team. They all have such distinct personalities, and they're all so funny.
KCL episodes are. I mean, I've been saying this since the very beginning because one of my favorite episode, possibly my favorite episode of the whole show, is Oops from season 1, which is just focuses on the KCL team, and we just get all of them. Well, I guess at that, I don't think Gil had even been introduced at that point, so we don't have Gil or
possibly not
Noel. But there's like Chopper Dave and Bulldog and the station manager. KCL episodes are always so funny.
Yeah.
When we have like the KCL Christmas parties, they're always great. When we have like when Roz is leaving do at the end of season 10, or like the sexual harassment seminar, they're all so funny and they're always really great. So,
I think this is what I kind of didn't appreciate when I was thinking back on this episode, is just how good they all are.
They're so funny all together. Yeah.
The scene in the sauna, Frasier puts together a sauna in his bathroom, and there's all these jokes about like who's touching who, and Gil's naked because he's not wearing everyone else is wearing a towel, but Gil's in there naked, and it's like it's all just hilarious watching them together. And it does kind of tie in towards the end with Martin and Niles' other little endeavour. Niles accidentally wiped away a smudge from the window, so Eddie's little pigeon pal Barney flies into the window and bumps his noggin. So they're trying to nurse him back to health throughout the episode, which again is very funny. I love when Niles bumps his head on the window. He's just like, see, that's why we have the smudge. But yeah, as someone who has had to nurse back 3 birds since moving into this house in 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and has had 2 die.
Oh God!
And another 2 disappear. I'm pretty sure this house is haunted.
Do you have that many? Do they fly into the windows, or do they just show up injured?
No, they fly into the windows.
Oh, okay.
You hear them flying into the windows.
Oh no!
But yeah, I think that's the other day was number 7.
Oh God!
It's one that flew away because I heard the bump, but I couldn't find any bird lying around.
There you go.
But yeah, as someone who has dealt with that several times recently, it's quite sad. Like when you see a little injured bird and you're like, oh, do you want him to make him better? So when Eddie eats little Barney, it's
a bit of a shame.
It's quite upsetting.
Yeah.
But luckily it serves as a
appetite suppressant.
When they're all like so hungry, they run into the living room, the whole KCL team, and start
fighting over birdseed.
Fighting over the birdseed that Niles has brought. And Martin walks in and says, like, everyone be careful. There's a dead bird in the hallway that Eddie just threw up, and now he's eating it again. Yeah. Like, oh my God. It's God. Yeah. I've had to deal with that as well.
Yeah.
With the dog, young dog. Yeah. It's not nice.
It's not.
And absolutely does work as an appetite suppressant.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Oh, poor Harry.
Yeah. So yeah, and we that kind of ties the 2 plots together. They initially think that Kenny's eaten the bird.
Yeah.
Because he comes through and the little bird box is empty, but it was Eddie that took it away.
Yeah.
And then we have the final scene with Frasier standing off against Wayne Shafter, and they do the weigh-in and they lose by like 2 ounces or something. Yeah. So Roz cuts all her hair off, and they manage to drop those additional ounces. I don't know how heavy is hair.
I don't know.
Like, it must be.
I don't know.
Relatively heavy.
What's an ounce? Is like 25 grams.
No, I guess that's not that heavy.
So it is a pretty small amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and Frasier gets his payback on Wayne Shafter for, was it stealing his chess set?
Stealing his chess set.
High school. Yeah, it's all very, very good. I love a lot of things about this episode, like the callbacks to Frasier's high school, all these stories with the bullies, him wearing the girls' field hockey uniform.
Yeah.
All the KCL team, Niles and Martin together. It's just a lot of stuff that I love in this episode, and there's a lot of great humor in it as well. Mostly with the KCL guys.
Yeah.
It's just the interactions with all of them are just so good. Yeah. No, I really like this episode. I think it's great.
Good.
How did you rank it?
I gave it a 3.
Okay.
I don't love it. It's good. I definitely think the KCL team together is great. I don't really care about the B plot with Niles and Martin and Barney the pigeon. Barney the pigeon. And I don't really care about Shafter. I don't think there's that much that's that funny about Shafter.
He's just kind of a generic bully.
He's okay. He's not terrible, but he's also not great. So it's just but the KCL stuff's great. So it's a 3. It is definitely better than I thought it was going to be going into it. I think I'm the same as you, where like I didn't think of it that fondly, but then watching it again, I remembered how good the KCL guys are together, and Bulldog and Kenny and Noel and everything, and they're all so funny. Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4. I think it's particularly funny. All the scenes in KCL, with them trying to add on the weight before they go in for their first weigh-in, trying to convince Noel to eat the food and give himself stomach cramps, and then you've got the stuff later on where everyone's like exhausted and hungry, and Roz is smoking, and they're all fighting each other.
Yes.
I think it's just great. I think it's just a really fun little episode. It doesn't really have any any overarching plot. There's no further mention of like Maris or anything. It's very much standalone. So I kind of appreciate it even more that way. There's nothing to detract from what is, again, a relatively straightforward plot, but it's just enjoyable. It's just fun. I love it. Yeah. And
there's a set of guest callers.
Is a guest star?
There is a guest star. There is a guest star. Yeah.
You want to do a guest star?
I'm going to do a guest star. Okay. There's actually 4 guest stars.
There's 4. Okay.
4 guest stars. What they call together. It's like a kind of family all bickering with each other all on the phone at once. So it starts with Frasier's gotten a call from a man called Maury who is getting annoyed because his wife keeps accusing him of cheating, even though he's not been cheating on her. And then his wife kind of is on the other line, thinks that Frasier is Maury's mistress. And then they start bickering, and then Celeste's mother is on the phone, and then they start arguing about doing the dishes, and then their daughter is on the line and says like, I'm sick of you arguing, I'm running away from home, and then they're all arguing with each other, and then Frasier just kind of hangs up on them. And so Stanley Tucci plays Maury.
Okay.
I love Stanley Tucci.
I do like Stanley Tucci.
He's so good. And I was looking through his stuff on IMDb, and there's some weird connections with Frasier. So Easy A, which is something that I really love him in, the Emma Stone film, he plays Emma Stone's dad.
Yes.
And Patricia Clarkson, who plays the mum, who was
Claire.
Yeah, Frasier's love interest at the end of season 8. He was in Julie and Julia, the film with Amy Adams, about Julia Child.
Oh yeah.
And he played Paul Child, Julia Child's husband, who was recently played by David Hyde Pierce in the HBO show as well. But yeah, I love Stanley Tucci. He's just great in everything. Have you seen Big Night?
No.
It was like one of his first films he wrote and directed, and it's him and Tony Shalhoub. They play brothers who run an Italian restaurant.
I can imagine that being quite good.
It's really good. It's like it's a bit weird. It's a bit sort of art housey almost. Like some of the stuff in it's not just like a straightforward kind of farce, but it's a very funny film.
Okay.
Anyway, his wife is Penny Marshall, who was in Laverne and Shirley. She was Laverne in Laverne and Shirley, and then went on to direct a few famous films, including Big with Tom Hanks,
of course,
and A League of Their Own, also with Tom Hanks. She's great. Estelle Parsons plays Celeste's mother, she was in Roseanne. She was quite well known for being in Roseanne, and she's also in, I think it's the next disc of Frasier. She plays Frasier's neighbor Opal in
is that her?
Coots and Ladders.
Yeah.
She's really good. She's really funny as well. And then their daughter is played by Hilary Duff.
Oh, really?
From Lizzie McGuire.
I love Lizzie McGuire.
And what else? What was a Cinderella story that she was in?
Yeah.
With was it Chad Michael Murray?
How I Met Your Father.
How I Met Your Father more recently. Yeah.
I love Hilary Duff. I love Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah.
That's like my guilty pleasure. I go back and watch it every few years.
Do you?
Yeah.
I
love that show.
I remember watching it like when it was on TV when I was pretty young. I don't know, was it like, did it move over to like Disney Channel or something? Or was it Disney Channel originally?
I don't know. We never had Disney Channel.
We didn't have Disney Channel.
It was just on like...
It was on CITV or whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember watching it when I was quite young. I can't say I've gone back and rewatched it.
I've watched it several times.
If you recommend it, I might go back and watch.
It's just
is
fun.
Is it on like Disney Plus or whatever?
No, I had it all downloaded at one point.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know if I still do.
Fair enough.
Somewhere. It's really great. It's just like nostalgic because we watched it as kids. Like I just really love going back and watching it. But it's a lot of really funny stuff in it.
I don't know if I remember it well enough to be nostalgic about it. Okay. So I don't know if I would. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go back and give it a watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hilary Duff.
Yeah, good. And that's episode 6.
Yeah,
that's disc 2. Closing in on the finale.
Yeah, we're getting there. Closer.
Any highlights from this disc?
Oh man. I don't know. I could probably give it to anything from High Holidays, but I feel like I've been banging on enough about High Holidays and John Mahoney and that. I'm probably going to say in Murder Most Maris, right at the end after Niles has had his little breakdown and he's slept for like 24 hours or something. And, you know, everyone's there kind of being supportive, and Maris calls him and he's on the phone and he's kind of doing his usual, like, yes, Maris. Yes, okay, Maris. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. And then he snaps and finally stands up to her properly. And just the way that he just yells over the phone, like, of course you're alone. You're alone because you killed your boyfriend. And just starts shouting about, like, I have to support my pregnant wife and I this and that, and it's time for you to say goodbye. No, what are you saying? Okay, yes, goodbye. And he hangs up. Yeah. It's great. Great.
It's very funny.
Finally, after 11 years, we're finally seeing him actually stand up to Maris, and I love it.
Yeah, that is a great moment. I think I would like to give it to Martin's entrance in Maris Returns.
Yeah,
when he comes into Fraser's office, just it's so funny. I don't know what it is. Every single time I watch it, it gets me. Mm-hmm. Just the way he walks in with like the plant in one hand, his cane in the other, like shaking. It's like, help me, Doc, I'm crazy.
Yeah,
just the way really he delivers that line is just absolutely hysterical. Every single time, it gets me. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to that.
Good choice.
Cool. Some highlights for you, and that's us. I think for another week.
Yep.
2 weeks to go.
I know.
2 weeks to go. Not long. Kind of sad about it, but also it's season 11, so it's also difficult to watch. So I don't know
it's not great. Although we do have, so the next disc has the introduction of one of my favorite. I don't know if you would necessarily call her a guest character, a recurring character. Frasier's new love interest,
Laura Linney. I do like Laura Linney.
I really fancy Laura Linney.
I
really fancy Laura Linney. And she's great in this. Charlotte's a great character, and I'm really excited. That's probably one of the things that always keeps me going towards the end of the show, because like the episodes aren't great, but the fact that she's kind of a very prominent figure at the very end, kind of helps keep me motivated to keep
I think
watching.
It's a shame that she's introduced so late.
It is a shame. If she had been rather than having all of the episodes right at the end, even if we'd had the same number of episodes, but it was sort of dotted throughout the season, it might have been a bit nicer.
We can discuss that next week.
We can
discuss that next week. Yes, well, if there's nothing more that you wish to say this week.
Nope. I'm good.
Nope. Okay, fine. Good. Then we shall say goodbye. Have a great day, everyone. Good mental health, and thank you for listening. This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leah O'Donnell for the show's artwork.